Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Believe in Arizona State podcast with your co-host Dick Coleman and the star of this podcast, ASU All-American, three-time Pro Bowler with the Cincinnati Bengals, David Fulcher. David, it's nice to see you.
Partner, I'm feeling good, man. I hate to see it, but you're not in Arizona. Boy, look at me. You are in the airport traveling, and our schedules are busy, but we still had to put this together. So I appreciate you sitting in the airport, waiting for your flight to take off, and we're going to make sure that we can go ahead and let our viewers know what's going on in the Believe in Arizona State. And want to talk a little bit about Dave. Boy, tough. We said it last week. They got 3 tough games coming up, and they just finished playing one against Utah. And my perspective as I watched the game was the lack of offense that they had. Utah's a pretty good football team. You're not going to be ranked that high if you weren't that good. But, I'm not a stat man, but one of the stats that I thought that stood out to me in this football game was, where was the rushing team? No rushing at whatsoever. The X factor.
That's true.
He wasn't the X factor. They finished with 6 yards rushing. A week ago against Eastern Michigan, they had almost 300 yards rushing. But against Utah, they finished with 6, and you can't compete when you do that, partner.
The X factor early in the game, he broke one for about 14 yards. But over the course of the game, the losses in the game ended up with about 6 points and 6 yards. David, I do understand that they were outmatched. I do understand that. And I do understand that the final score wasn't pretty. But there's a couple things. This is called Believe in Arizona State. So let me share a couple things that give me hope that when we do these podcasts in the future, we're going to keep talking about positive things. Number one, I saw them stay committed. It looked like they were committed to Sean Guano. It looks like they came to play. They took some big hits. They gave some big hits. And to me, it appeared they stayed committed throughout that entire ball game, to the point where they scored. And one of my favorite guys on the team, Sias Winston, scores on one of the last plays of the game. They never gave up, David. Now, were they outmatched? Yes. Was the stadium pretty empty by the end of the game? Yes. But for a team that was outmatched, I didn't see them give up. You're right. I didn't see any pressure on the quarterback. We had quite a few sacks, and a couple plays were called back. A couple of nice plays we had, real nice plays where guys took big hits, were called back due to penalty. Did we have much of a chance to win that game? No, I don't believe we did. But they didn't give up, Dave.
And I think sometimes when you're going through the turmoil they're going through, losing a coach, and how they lost a coach on the field when he lost his job in front of everybody, that was kind of embarrassing. But as an athlete, you still got to play ball. You still got to play. You got to do your part, and you got to do the things you're supposed to do. So what I'm thinking is that as a player, now you're being evaluated. Because you got a new coach in there, you still got a responsibility. You got things you need to do. And the new coach wasn't somebody new to them. He was just the leader of this football team on that particular night. And he had a week to get those guys prepared. And they were prepared. But once again, the week that they had, losing their head coach, a new leader trying to get this team up and down the field, things are going to look different. So, but I wish they had a team that they could, a cupcake team that they could play outside of Utah. But yet it was tough. It was tough to watch it because I know that they're better than that. But it's going to take some time for that coach to, form this team up to his caliber and what he wants to get done. So no, they did not quit. And it doesn't get any easy because they got the Trojans next week.
Let's give credit where credit is due, David. And I think you're a better evaluator of a potential NFL talent than I am. But there were a couple guys on the other side of the ball for Utah. I think Kincaid, the tight end, I think we'll be seeing him play on Sundays. I wouldn't mind seeing a team with orange and black snag him.
Oh, yeah.
We have Joe Burrow thrown to him for the next decade of our lives.
Yeah.
Just kind of a man among boys. like a Swenson from their standpoint. A couple of tremendous wide receivers, a couple of great running backs. The quarterback rising was, again, almost like a coach on the field, that poise level that we're not seeing right now. But I don't know that that's our barometer for success. I asked you, and what success looks like. What does progress and success look like? I saw some. I did. I watched the first half live, and then the West Coast time difference gets to us on the East Coast, and I ended up watching the second half on a tape broadcast. But they were outmanned, but they didn't give up. That gives me some hope. It gives me some hope. I thought Emery and Sanders hooked up a couple of nice times. I still thought Emery and Badger. Emery got his first interception, but it wasn't exactly just a throw. It's a pretty nice play by Utah. Then we were communicating early in the game when it was nice to see them stop Utah on their first possession. They didn't go right down and score Utah. They made them punt, and then we couldn't, back-to-back sacks put us inside the 5, and then from there we're going to have a tough time. But some of what we were hoping to see happened, but then we were worn down by another team, quite simply.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing a nationally ranked team, you can't make mistakes because they don't make a lot of mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, because they're so good, they can capitalize on getting it back and taking care of business. Utah was fundamentally sound, both offensively and defensively, in that football game. And what happens to an Arizona State team with a few mistakes here and a few mistakes there, you're down 14-0, you're down 17-0, and you're out of the football game because Utah will not let you do those things because they're a nationally ranked team and they're used to being in that big spotlight, playing the way they were playing. So speaking of spotlight there, Dave, I think I have someone who's on the line right now who was at the game. And, I believe that as we do our podcast and we have some of the things that we have, I think this young lady who was at the game could really benefit us in our podcast because she is pretty good at what she does. And I think she's there. Can you hear me, Kayla Fulcher? Are you there, girl?
I can hear you. Hi, guys.
Hey, what's happening? How are you?
What's up?
Not much.
Hello, Kayla. Welcome back, Kayla. It's real nice to see you.
You too.
Hey, listen, Kayla, we're going to get right in this pretty quick. So ASU against Utah down in Sun Devil Stadium. You were there. You knew the atmosphere. You know what was going on. Kind of give us a little perspective of what you saw a little bit from start, until the time you left that game.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest. I think I probably left around the first quarter.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty bad, honestly. I mean, the atmosphere was completely different though. Everybody was in it. Everybody was there. I didn't realize how many Utah fans travel, but the whole half of the stadium was all red. And
wow.
Then the other half was all black. They travel.
They're the college version. They're the college version of like the Packers and the Bills and the Steelers. Those people travel.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
First, they want to get out of Utah, and then numbers travel.
For sure. It was just frustrating. It was very frustrating to watch it. Arizona State I feel like they're not getting in that groove. They're not catching that break that they need. I mean, looking back at the stats, I mean, it showed during the game, but when I looked at the stats, I was honestly shocked by the amount of rushing yards. I mean, we had 6 rushing yards, 6 in the entire game. That's not okay, like at all. I mean, I think Utah had over 200 rushing yards. Their defense was unmatched. Like we couldn't compete with their defense. There was no way.
Those guys. Now I was watching the game, and their front seven is pretty good. We talk about front sevens. The 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, or 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers. That front seven is pretty good, and they put a lot of pressure on Arizona State's offense. And like I said, if you're not used to seeing that or protecting it, they didn't protect it pretty well. And once again, our podcast is Believe in Arizona State, and we do believe that this football team can play. But it's one of those things that they've got to come up and they've got to step up and make those plays. And Utah was just so strong. I mean, they were pushing, bench pressing the lineman back into the quarterback's face. And you can't throw the football when people are in your face. They couldn't run the football. And think about this. So a lot of times when you look at stats are, they're kind of misleading.
Mhm.
As a total, Arizona State finished with 6 yards rushing. But that's considered sacks. That's considered tackles for loss. So you might have our X factor probably finished with 30 yards rushing, but when your quarterback gets sacked,
Correct,
or you get tackled behind the line of scrimmage, it knocks your total rushing yards down.
Mhm.
So when we see that,
this is exactly what happened.
6 yards is pretty bad because your quarterback's on his back, somebody's getting tackled in the backfield, and before you know it, you're behind the stick. So one of the things that I noticed throughout the ball game is I'm always looking at third down. Third down situations are very important to me because you move the chains and footballs keep going and the game keeps going. I look up and I see Arizona State 3-for-11 on third downs throughout the whole game. 3-for-11. That's not a good percentage. Utah was 5-for-15. That's still not a better percentage, but yet when your total yards are 465 for Utah and 267 for Arizona State, let me tell you something, man. That's a disaster waiting to happen, and it did. So, once again, turnovers, Arizona State 3, Utah 1. You can't win those football games, man. Total first downs, Utah 26, Arizona State 15. And once again, man, Utah, because they're so used to being where they are, they're going to dominate a lot of people, and that's a pretty good football team.
David, everything you just said, Kayla, I'll come right back to you.
No, you're
Everything
fine.
you
You're fine.
just said is 100% true. And Kayla, something you said, I just want to tell you on you where you said they weren't catching a break. They couldn't catch a break. Early in the game, Emery threw a nice swing pass to Sanders, who took it up the sideline. And he probably 25, 30-yard game. And he took a wallop going out. It was a legal hit.
I saw that. Yes, he did.
Yes,
Remember?
he did.
And his teammates were right there. They picked him up, pushed him off. He sprinted back. And what happened there? That entire thing's called back.
Penalty.
I think it was a holding penalty.
Puts
him back inside the 10-yard line. So is that considered a break? I guess not. A penalty's a penalty. But and would that have necessarily changed the outcome of the game? I don't think so.
Could have.
We're talking about plays in there. And Kayla, you're right. Not only catching a break, but creating your own breaks by not all these untimely times when you've just had a nice play.
And those are the things, Dave, and Kayla, that as a spectator, you watch those things and you said, boy, if it wasn't a holding, we got a 35-yard game. Now we got a momentum and we're moving. But now we're going backwards. So we go from first down on the play to now being 1st and 20 or 1st and 25. And when you're behind the chains like that, it makes it tough for a football team because now Utah is going to dial up some blitzes and some stunts. And they're going to try to create havoc. And what did they do after that? I believe they sacked the quarterback. There was an incomplete pass. And before you know it, now it's 3rd down and 25. So now they're sitting back. Those defensive ends are sitting back, pinning their ears back, and they're coming right at the quarterback. And then more pressure. Now you got to punt the football. And this football team, when I say young, I don't know if they're young in age, but when you're struggling, it's hard to get out of your own way when you're struggling like they are. And that's what they're doing right now.
Well, and they're definitely going through a lot of adversity right now. I mean, losing their head coach, that's adversity. That's huge. But also with what you said, momentum wise, I mean, let's say that there wasn't a holding call and they did get that 30-yard rush or that play, like for them to get that called back, that completely lowered their energy.
Oh yeah.
And playing college sports, and I mean, with you playing professional sports too, you feed off that energy. You feed off of obviously the crowd's energy, but you feed off of your own players' energy.
Yes.
You feed off of when a play happens, a good play happens where you get that extra yardage, and 30 yards is a lot of yards,
Yes.
Especially in the beginning of the game, especially against a good team like Utah. When that gets called back, of course, all of them they're bummed. They're down. They're like, well, it got taken away from us, Yeah. And just looking at it, I mean, by the time halftime came, they had 6 points on the board. Those 6 points were not a touchdown and a missed field goal. Those were all Those were all
Right.
field goal kicks. You know what I mean?
Right.
They waited until the fourth quarter to score a touchdown. You can't wait you have to score. I mean, that's the whole point of any sport that you play in. You have to score.
Sure thing.
And Utah took advantage of that. I mean, Utah scored in every single quarter, twice in every single quarter. I mean, it was.
Kayla, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I have a good question for you. We were talking about this earlier. we know that the team has to stay committed. The team has to stay committed to the new coaching staff, and the new coaching staff has to stay committed to turning this situation around.
Mm-hmm.
I want to regress just a minute. You said was a couple quick questions that are one question. Was the stadium pretty full beginning of the game?
Yeah, it was actually. It was very full.
Okay. And give me the feeling in a couple of words. What was the feeling of the people in that stadium? Because here's a top-ranked team in America. Don't forget, we have to remember this. If they don't go to Florida and lose, they were preseason number 4. If they happened to beat Florida, we'd have been playing a top 1, 2, 3, or 4 team.
Yeah.
What was the attitude? What was the attitude of the crowd?
Honestly, everyone was in it. Everyone. Honestly, that game, you would have thought that Arizona State would have won that game just by the energy everybody brought. It was a blackout game. So, I mean, everybody was in black. I mean, everybody was just in the game. And even the players in the beginning of the game, before the game started, they were hyped. They were running on the field. They were jumping up and down. They were celebrating with the fans already. I mean, you would have thought that like this game was the championship game. I mean, that's just how everybody was acting. Everyone was so into it. Everyone was so excited. I mean, I was excited. I mean, based on, last week, I mean, you kind of have to let that go. Like it happened. I mean, you got a new opponent and this opponent is way better. You got to play way better. You know what I mean? I feel like it's going to kind of be the same next week. And I hope that they take what happened last week with a grain of salt, but with the lessons that they've learned.
Yeah.
And
Because
David
it's only going to get
David
harder.
Fulcher, unless I might be crazy about this, David Fulcher, but here's the craziness of college football. Kayla, we could talk about this. If
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, Eastern Michigan got spanked this week by
Yes, they did.
Buffalo
Yes,
at
they did.
home.
Yeah,
So
Buffalo beat them up.
They come out to Arizona State. They beat Arizona State. They go home and get beat up by a MAC team.
Yeah, yeah.
Help me. Please help me as co-host of this podcast.
So listen, Kayla, I really appreciate you coming back on, girl.
Of course, guys. Of course.
We're gonna see you next week because I got a special friend of mine that I played with. So I'm gonna try to get him in here, Kayla. So we'll see you next week, girl. Okay.
All right. Sounds good, guys.
All right. Take care.
Kayla.
All right.
Thank you.
So here's the thing, Dave. That girl's pretty good. She knows what she's talking about, man. I appreciate her insight and she's doing what she's pretty good. So
having a young version of you at the games.
I know. We got to bring my guy in, man. I'm gonna go ahead and let him in here really quick. I know he's on the road driving back from St. Louis. Hopefully we can get him on here pretty quick, though. I hate to see him driving while he's doing a podcast, but hopefully we can get him connecting pretty quick. He's trying to get us in. He'll get it. As he's working on it, Dave, Utah was tough. Can't see you there, big fella. If you're out there, you're trying to get it. You are muted right now. I can't hear you. I can't even see you. But you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Hey, Anthony, can you hear me?
Probably better that you don't see me.
Okay, that's okay, man.
I can hear you.
As long as you can hear me, you're good to go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Buddy. Hey, so we got Hall of Famer. I don't know what else to say, but a very humble Southern California Trojan USC guy, Cincinnati Bengals Hall of Famer, offensive lineman, Anthony Munoz. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, David, good being with you, man. How you doing tonight?
We're doing great, man. And I've got my co-host, David Coleman.
Hey, David.
Can you hear him, Dave?
I sure can. Hi, Anthony. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, David.
Hey, listen, man, I know you're traveling home and safe travels. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, both of us are Southern California guys. and you went to SC. I played against SC, obviously with Arizona State. You get drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, and now you're a long way from home. And you too, just like me, we both have stayed here in Cincinnati. And so tell me a little bit about what's going on with yourself, Anthony, if you don't mind.
Well, played my whole career here, as you know, stayed in Cincinnati, fell in love with Cincinnati. My wife and I both have, 2 kids here in town. And, when I retired, actually got a job offer back at USC about a week after my last game. And I said, thanks, no thanks. We're going to stay in Cincinnati. Fell in love with it. The first 7 years I retired, I went into broadcasting. I was with Fox when they got the NFL. Then I moved over to ESPN. Knowing all along, I have 2 kids. They were getting older. My son went off and played college ball, so I left broadcasting to watch him play. Watch my daughter play basketball, but did some broadcasting for about 7 years, and then after that, when I left to watch them play, I didn't go back into broadcasting. I continued to do the Bengal preseason games on TV, which I've done probably 25, 26 years. For the last 21 years, I've had a foundation here in Cincinnati where we have like 8 programs dealing with kindergarten through high school seniors, trying to impact their lives, leadership, character, and education. Have a few companies that I've represented, and as David knows, we get really involved with each other's causes here in Cincinnati. We support each other's foundations and the great causes that we do. We play in each other's golf tournaments, go to each other's dinners, and just really try to support one another's teammates. And that's what it's been, raising a family. Now we got 9 grandkids, so I know David's in the grandkid stage.
Oh yeah.
So things are just great, and doing that and trying to get out and play a little golf.
Sounds like a plan. Dave, you got anything for Anthony? Because this is a rare, I will say rare. Anthony's my guy, man. He and I have been talking back and forth about doing this podcast.
He's my guy too. Other than you being one of my top favorite athletes of all time, it might be a dead heat with you and Anthony Munoz. And Anthony and I go back. We went to the same church for a while, and Anthony used to own a restaurant kind of over where I lived. And Anthony, I'll just say this: you're not only a walking ambassador for the Bengals, but you're a walking ambassador for the NFL. You're a walking ambassador for what it means to be a gentleman, evidenced by the fact you're coming on tonight. I have a question about your Trojans. Looks like at the beginning of the week, they're 7th now, I believe.
Yes.
And somewhere around that number. And I want to say this the right way. I don't want to offend you or them. Is it nice to see them being relevant again? And I know that that's a tough thing to say, because you might say, when were they irrelevant? But they're back in the discussion on a national level. And I know it was a tough game last week in Corvallis, but because of my career, I have spoken in Corvallis many times. I've been to Corvallis at least 70 times in my life. When they play at night there, that is no joke, David. It's a lot like going to Oklahoma State. Not necessarily the same caliber of football team, but it's not easy to beat them in their stadium. And so, Anthony, what's it like right now for you? A very proud alum, All-American, Pro Bowler 11 times. What's it like to see them come back?
Well, it's not offending anyone when you say that, because they have been down. After the Pete Carroll years, which was an amazing role. It's funny, they talk so much about the Pete Carroll years, and I think they overlooked the John Robinson years. As many All-Americans, and maybe not. They had the couple national championships. We had one, but we had 4 Pro Football Hall of Famers, and we got college Hall of Famers. And I think the '79 team at SC's overlooked and really talked about the Pete Carroll years. But that's great. I think it's getting back in that direction. Again, like I said, you're not going to offend me by saying relevant again, because we have been down. I'm someone that's there through thick and thin. Of course, COVID has kind of put a kibosh on that. But if they're winning national championships or if they're struggling, I'm there watching games. And I'm excited about Lincoln Riley. I didn't really have him on my radar when we're talking about new head coaches. They had a search committee that interviewed about 45 of us former players and former coaches. Literally, they did it this time. They had talked about it previously, but Mike Bone there did that. I spent 45 minutes being interviewed, what I wanted to see, hopefully come back. But Lincoln Riley's name never came up. And so when we hired him, excitement, a lot of excitement. I've had a chance to talk to him, be around him several times. I'm really, really impressed. And so we'll see. We'll see if we can get. I talked to Ronnie Lott after the Stanford game. We were at an event together, and I think we have the same sentiment. Offensively, a lot of weapons, able to score some points, but we still need some work on defense. And you mentioned Corvallis has always been a tough place, regardless of what kind of football team they have. When you go up there, you know you're going to be in for a battle.
Oh, I remember those days up there, man. We back in the day when it was UCLA and USC and Washington and then Arizona State was probably in the mix as well. Oregon and Oregon State, they were just the stepchilds of the Pac-10, Pac-12. But it was always tough to go up there, Corvallis, and play, man. And USC has. It's funny, man, because I grew up 15 blocks from USC. Wanted to go to USC. USC said I wasn't good enough to play for them, so I wound up going to Arizona State to play against SC. But I remember, man, the days where that Trojan horse, USC, the Coliseum, as a kid growing up, that's all you thought about. That's all you wanted to do. You wanted to be a Trojan. And when I didn't get that chance to play with them, I thought I'd play against them, and I did. But this is a special football team. I know Lincoln Riley coming in has put some players in place. I know the portal has helped some schools better than others. And I think USC has benefited on the portal. I've also seen where they are back to the USC football that I used to see as a kid growing up. Anthony, especially when you were playing, the Charlie Whites, the O.J. Simpsons, the Marcus Allens, you can go all the way back to all those guys. So there's a lot of productive players that played at SC. But right now you've got a pretty good quarterback and that he's making some serious plays. And if I'm not mistaken, he's coming from Oklahoma, so he followed his coach over here, I believe. And I will tell you something, that's a pretty good combination they got going on at SC right now.
Yeah, a couple of things, David. You mentioned OJ. I'm not that old, but I am old enough. You mentioned Pac-10, Pac-12. I am old enough. I started my first 2 years in the Pac-8 and then finished in the Pac-10. So, I was there. So I'm actually one that has a Pac-8 championship and a Pac-10 championship.
There you go.
But you're right. I mean, the portal, the NILs. I mean, now everything is giving people an opportunity. Basically, free agency, free market. I mean, it's to me, it's gotten a little out of hand, but it's helping some teams that might not have been up there, with the way it used to be, or giving them a chance. I know for USC, the transfer portal, it's given Lincoln Riley a chance to let guys, when he got to USC, that he might not have wanted there, to go play somewhere else, and then for him to bring in guys that he wanted, like you said, his quarterback Caleb from Oklahoma, who knows the system. I mean, they got this wide receiver, the Biletnikoff winner from Pitt. They got the running back from Oregon who has 3 100-yard games so far. So they're getting back. And we're excited. One quick story. The Sunday that they hired Lincoln Riley, I was up in Canton doing an academy, coaching some guys, and my phone rings at dinner, and it was Marcus Allen. And Marcus says, "Anthony, do you know what just happened?" I said, "Yeah, we just hired a new coach." He goes, "No. Do you know what just happened? Do you know who we just hired?" And he went on for about a half an hour, excited about Lincoln Riley and giving me all his stats and everything he's done. So I have to say there's a lot of excitement, and hopefully that continues to build with the guys, not only the portal, but with the recruits. We need to continue to get those young offensive linemen in there, which he did in Oklahoma, and which we lacked over the last several years. So to say the least, there's a lot of excitement about what's going on there on the USC campus. And it appears that, President Folk and AD, Mike Bone are totally behind him. And I think it is obvious that they're behind him with the type of payday that he got.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Right.
Dave, you got anything else, man? Because I know my guy's driving from St. Louis. I don't want him to be distracted.
Well, I got a little excited. As you know, Dave, baseball is my first love. And David, it was my first love. So I'm driving into St. Louis yesterday, got there right about dinner time, and the lights of Busch Stadium are on, and I didn't have anything last night. My first thought is going over and watching the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are out in L.A. They're out in L.A. And then, of course, I saw the Gateway Arch for the first time in person. business meeting. I have an official job with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Not only a member of the Hall of Fame, but an employee. And my president, who I'm working closely with, Jim Porter, and I were there to meet with a really big company that's a partner of ours. And I'll be doing a lot more. So yeah, my pleasure. It's an easy drive, 5-hour drive, and I'm close to home now. And it's great to end my drive and this evening with talking to you guys tonight.
Well, brother, I really appreciate
let
it.
me share this with Anthony really quick before we
Yes.
let him go. Anthony, I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio. So
Oh, wow.
to have you enshrined, a couple things I just want to say, to have you enshrined, and I hope that you enjoy every time you go back to the Hall of Fame, and I know you're working with them, an ambassador, and every time you're back in my hometown, I hope it's a good experience for you, and to know that you were enshrined right there. And it's just an honor. It's just really wonderful for me to know that that's a connection for you. And if we're ever there at the same time, there's a couple of fabulous hideaway restaurants. One of them's on me. Be good to see you there. Thank you.
Well, appreciate it. I just want to
driving.
Yeah, no, I just want to add, I love going up to Canton, and with this new job, I represent everything about the Hall. That's my fellow Hall of Famers, the staff, the board, and the city of Canton. I tell people to see what happens Hall of Fame weekend, that everybody that's involved are volunteers, and to see the ownership and the job they do, it just, I mean, it really, it's an honor to go back, not only for Hall of Fame weekend, but I get up there quite a bit even before this new position. So you got to be proud of your hometown because, they do an amazing job welcoming all the guys and the people that come during that weekend. So, I love the people in Canton, and I enjoy every time I go up there.
It's nice to hear.
We
Thank
appreciate you calling there, big guy. We always
right,
love each other. Hey, look, you take care of yourself, man. Get home safe, and I'll see you soon on the links, man.
All right, sounds good, buddy. All right, man.
brother.
You guys
Take
have a
care.
great night.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Anthony.
Wow, let me tell you, Dave, that was pretty good, man. That guy, let me tell you, man, I came to Cincinnati in 1986, and I remember my rookie year rushing Boomer Esiason coming off the left edge, and there was number 78 stopping me in my tracks. And he didn't say much, but he did tell me, you can't touch my quarterback. And from that day on, I knew I could not touch Boomer, because if I come from the right side of Boomer's front side, I knew Anthony Munoz was there. Great guy. Great opportunity, man, to have him on here. And, we talk about USC and Arizona State. We've had our battles. The 4 years I played against SC at Arizona State, we beat them 3 out of 4 years. 1 year, Dave, we had them down at Sun Devil Stadium my freshman year, and it was a field goal game, 6-3. There was no offense at all. Defenses won that ball game. And from there on, it was always a battle. And hopefully we'll have another battle here. Arizona State's going into a hostile environment at the Coliseum. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for ASU. But, when you believe in Arizona State, as we believe in Arizona State, anything can happen. And once again, if Arizona State gets out there and they can control the clock, they can control the tempo, take USC out of their fast-paced offense, and just, make sure to have the turnovers. The turnovers are very, very crucial. We want a short field, Dave. When I say short field, we want to be, second and under 5 instead of second and 10, third and 15.
Right.
You're not going to win football games if you do that. Does that make sense? You're not going to do that.
It absolutely does. You've trained me over time, and the more we talk football, but I understand the third downs are going to be huge. The turnovers are going to be huge. And honestly, this is even more, every time we turn a third down into a first down, you're keeping the ball out of the hands of one of the better offenses in America at home. And here, this is interesting. They didn't give their best performance this week. So what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to come back home and beat someone to death, basically, so that they'll become the talk of the town again. If we can keep that offense off the field, I think they'll have a bit tougher time doing that.
So we talked about the stats in the Utah game where they only had 6 yards rushing. Well, the X Factor had 30. I mean, 8 carries 30 yards. The 8 carries is because you're down in the game and they don't want to run the football. So now your quarterback is throwing the football more. But what really hurt was Emory Jones has had 11 carries and minus 26 yards. So minus 26 yards for him, 30 plus yards for the X factor. Now you're looking at a very, very low. And they average 0.3 yards a carry. 0.3 yards a carry.
You and I were texting at that time, and there were back-to-back sacks that went for 5 yards, 7 yards, 8 yards, and we're texting each other going, this is going to be a long night if it keeps like this. Obviously, that can't happen for them to stay in the game with USC. Can't happen. One other little shining light, was only one, but I liked it, is Ngata had a very nice kickoff return. And that showed me a little bit of work on special teams. And maybe, just maybe, David, special teams come up a little special this week and keep us in this ball game. And every moment we're in this ball game, just like Eastern Michigan did to us, every moment we're in this ball game creates a sense of belief and momentum that we should be in this ball.
Yes, yes.
Let's hope.
That is, yeah. So you know what? I think this football team, you can only go up, Dave. You can only go up. And I think this football team has a chance to do that. They've got a new coach right now, or interim head coach, a running back coach. So, you know, he's actually now running back coach and running this team. So I think that you can only go up, and I think this football team has an opportunity. I know you got to get on that flight, man, and I really appreciate my partner in crime, D Square.
I sure do.
Is out there doing what he needs to do, man. We're going to do it again next week. Hopefully, Arizona State can go up there and upset them Trojans in Southern Cal. And at least play well enough to improve week in and week out. Okay, my friend?
Absolutely. As much as I love you and doing this podcast, I don't want to walk to Raleigh-Durham, so I will head to my gate. But thank you for this and squeezing.
All right, my friend.
And to have one of my idols, Anthony Munoz. Come on.
Hey, let me tell you, Anthony Munoz is a class act, man, and it's nice to have. In my opinion, probably the best offensive lineman tackle that ever played the game. That is him.
I agree.
All right, my friend. We're gonna do it again next week, man. Safe trip, getting home. Talk to you later, my friend.
Thank you.